Hello and welcome to UKFitnessHub.com. My name's Travistarrant, and in today's video we're going to be going through pelvic stabilisation. I'm going to be explaining why pelvic stabilisation is important, as well as what you can do to improve your own pelvic stabilisation from home. Let's get into the video. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to cover the boring stuff first, which is why is pelvic stabilisation important? So we use the muscles of our pelvis every day, all day, when we stand, when we sit. You are constantly working your pelvic muscles. It's really important for those pelvic muscles to be strong, to prevent injuries. And I want to just put almost into your head what instability is, right? So let's take an ankle that's unstable. If I stand on that ankle on one leg, what's going to happen is the ankle is going to be like this. It's going to be wobbling. It may have a susceptibility to injure easier, or you might find yourself walking and the ankle just goes, right? So that could do with stability work and training, functional stability work and training. The same can happen with the hips. So the hip may have muscles that are over tight, that are doing too much, could have muscles that are not doing enough. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a multifaceted approach with the exercises we're going to cover to strengthen up all ranges of motion with the hips, to try and get better stability and strength through the hip muscles, which then creates the body to have a less susceptibility for injury. Now, what tends to happen if someone's got poor pelvic stability is that they may have problems with their gait. So, for example, the way they walk. They may also have problems with the lower back, so there might be a lack of pelvic support, and then there might be an over-tightening or overstrain on the back muscles. Now, if we then think about the hips in general and just look at the position of the hips, you've got the whole weight of the upper body and spine, and the anchor point is the hips. So your anchor point being the hips, and then also your stabilization through the core massively affects how functional and how well your body can cope with running, with jogging, with simple tasks, and where the strength's going to come from for even something like picking up a box. Is somebody going to use their hips, pelvis and core, or are they going to just use their lower back, for example? Do they have the function to effectively move where they're not putting additional stress on other structures? So with this video, I know there's going to be people watching this that want to improve their pelvic stability and are complete beginners. Maybe they've got back pain, or they've been told by physios or whatnot that you need to improve your pelvic stability. And there might be other people watching this that are athletes, but they want to get that 1 or 2% better in their field. So we're going to be covering exercises almost in progressions. So I'm going to show you what the beginner exercise would be and then how to make it more advanced. Now, only go and do the exercises that are comfortable for you, that you can do well. And if you can't do an exercise, try and work up to it. Let's get into these exercises that we can do to improve your pelvic stability. So the first exercise that we're going to do is a glute bridge. So to do a glute bridge, what I want you to do is copy my position. So you're laying onto your back, knees are bent, feet are just wider than hip width apart. If you want to use a pillow for this, feel free. So if you want a proper pillow underneath your head, absolutely no problem at all. Now, the first thing that I want you to do in this position is you're going to bring just your tailbone off the floor. So you're going to raise your hips up and just the tailbone comes off the floor, and then bring your lower back and then mid back off the floor as you're squeezing the glutes at the same time. As I come down, my mid back slowly returns back to the mat, and then my lower back and tailbone. So we're going to do 15 repetitions for 3 sets of this one. So again, let's go through it. We get tailbone off the floor, lower back and mid back, big squeeze in the glutes, and then slowly back down. And again, all the way up, big squeeze, and all the way down. If that's too easy for 3 sets of 15, you could start to use some additional resistance in the way of resistance bands, or you can also use weight on your hips as well. So I'm going to use the resistance band for this example. Now, first things first, you can pop the resistance band below the knee or above the knee. It doesn't really matter. Now, to make this harder, of course, we could use additional resistance, so a heavier resistance band. But what we can also do is come a little bit wider with the feet if you want to really maximize the amount you're getting out of the resistance band. Now remember, the more resistance, the more your knee's going to want to come in. So you've got to keep the knees in a neutral position as you're doing the exercise. So I'm going to copy the same position I was in for the last one. This time, however, I'm feeling the resistance of my knees wanting to come in. I'm keeping my knees neutral as I then do the exercise. Now I can feel this a lot more in my glutes because I've got that additional resistance. If you can do 3 sets of 15 of that, fine. The final progression, and this really works your pelvic stability, is to bring both feet in so they're touching each other. One knee is going to come up. You can have the knee bent or straight. And then from here, you're going to come up, squeeze the glute, and back down. You're going to come up, squeeze the glute, and back down. So those, again, all of them 3 sets of 15, and that is the first complex of exercises that you can do. Next up, we have Clams, which is working the glute medius. So what I want you to do is pop both feet on top of each other. You're going to be in a position here where you've got a right angle at the knee. Your hips are in line with your shoulders, and then you've got a pillow where my hand is. You can also use your hand like I am, but it's quite nice to have a pillow there so you can focus on the movement. Now with my right hand in this example, I'm going to put it on the floor to stop me from cheating and using my upper body and chest as I do my clams. So for those of you that are beginners, you might just want to start off by doing the clams like so. So again, we're working 2 to 3 sets of 15. Now for an individual that when they're opening up the knee and bringing it back in without any torso or hip cheating, they might feel like this is enough and they can feel it within the glutes, and really they don't need to progress it at this moment in time. For another individual, they might again want to add a resistance band. Again, you can do this above or below the knee. So if I pop this below the knee, make sure as well that it doesn't crinkle up, otherwise it can be really uncomfortable. Again, same position. And what you're looking to do is maximize the range of motion that you can without, again, using the upper body, without coming into a cheat position. Now, when you are doing the repetitions, just have a little look at what your hips are doing. Where can you feel it? And are you rocking at all? So that's, again, why that right hand's here, stopping any movement. And again, you're going to do all of these on both sides. Now, once you've done your 15, if that's too easy, what we can then do is we can then bring one leg up and start to do it like so. So now I'm doing exactly the same motion, but I've got additional range of motion with my hip. So because there's more resistance on the band, it's an even harder exercise. It's a hybrid between really a straight leg raise and a clam. What you can also do as well is if you want to increase the resistance, but you find that in that last exercise, everything's going all over the place, you can pop a ball between your 2 feet. That then gives you a bit of extra stability because there's a ball between the 2 feet, and then you can do the clams from that position, and you can still have something that grasps between your feet so you don't feel like you're losing stability, but you're also getting a lot more resistance there as well. So that's a good way to start working glute medius. If that's too easy, we're going to go on to some plank progressions that we can work the obliques and the glute medius as well. Let's now go into the side plank variations. So you can get a lot of bang for your buck in these side plank variations because we can couple up both trunk stability as well as trying to get the glutes working as well, specifically glute medius. So we're going to start off with the first one that you can do, which is a simple half side plank. So this would be the beginner version where we're going to pop the body completely straight in a neutral position between knees, hips and shoulders as well. You're going to come up and you're going to hold that position. Now, you can also couple this up with doing dips as well. So you might, for example, do the hold for 2 sets of 30 repetitions. You can also then do the hip raises as well for, let's say, 15 to 20. And that would start getting the obliques and your lateral trunk muscles working efficiently. What we can then do is, if we want to work the glutes at the same time, we come up into that position. We're going to hold it. And now I'm going to bring the leg up and down. I'm not going to touch the floor. I'm going to hover it off the floor. And then make sure on this one you don't cheat by lowering the hips as you start to get tired. So you're going to start to feel not only the glutes, but also the muscles of the side of the core, your obliques. What we can also do, if you want to make that harder, is we can come into full side plank variation. Some people like to stack the feet like so. Some people like to have them like this, so where they're apart. You can do either. And I want you to come into your side plank variation. You can also, again, do this for 30 seconds, then couple it up with the dips. And if you're a real glutton for punishment, what you can do as well is you can do that abduction with the leg as well. So again, hand comes up, then abduction with the leg. Now, what we can also do is, if you don't want to do those side plank variations, if they're too tough and you want to work up to it, and for those especially that are just starting them, you might find it's a little bit uncomfortable on the shoulder at first, but the shoulder does adapt and does get better stabilization and strength for the side plank. We can come into a position like so, where we've got both feet on top of each other. I've got my hips nice and straight, so I'm not bowed at all. Again, I'm trying to keep that solid position where I'm not leaning forwards or back. And you might just come up and back down and just do single leg abductions. You can make it harder again with a resistance band. So you can pop the resistance band around your ankle. And then what we can also do is we can start to vary it up. So we can come forwards, back, forwards, back. And again, we're going to start to work different muscles of the hip. You could do circles. So this one's quite a difficult one, because although it looks easy, the hip's moving, so my trunk, and I want to come forward as I come forward in the circle and back when I come back. So it's about trying to keep your upper body completely stable as your lower body starts to do circles. You could do clockwise and anti-clockwise. As well with that, you can do fire hydrants. So the laying down version would be, you would have your hip up and in a flexed position. And then from here, again, hand comes out, and you're going to come up, back down, up, back down. Hopefully you can't hear my hip popping in the video. As long as there's no pain associated, it's fine. You can also do that in an all fours position. So you can come into this position and we can work in all fours. Just make sure you've got your hips directly above your knees and your shoulders directly above your wrists. And then from here, I'm going to come out, back in, out, back in. We can also do opposite hand and leg raise in this position. So we can work the stability of not only the core but the lower back. So coming into this position, I'm going to brace my core as much as possible. So I'm essentially pulling my shoulder blades back. I'm trying to push into the floor. From here, I'm trying to then squeeze my core muscles as I then bring opposite and opposite up at the same time. And what you might find is, especially if you do it slow, you'll be able to see the stability of your hips when you're in this position, because you might be all over the place, and you can work on it as well. That would be something where I would do an even number of reps to simulate both sides. So if you do 8 on one side when you're doing opposite and opposite, try and do 8 on the other side as well. Now we're going to get on to the hard stabilization exercises, and all you need is a step. So make sure that when you're doing these exercises I'm going to show you about 6 or 7 back to back. The first thing is we want to make sure that we've got something that we can grab onto should we need it. So If you, for example, are doing these for the first time and you're a little bit worried about your balance, you want to have something in front or to the side of you that you can pop your hand out, and if you need it for balance, you can grab it straight away. That way the risk of injury goes down substantially. Sometimes I do this with people up against a wall, so I'd have the step up here, they would be against the wall and they could grab onto the wall if they needed it. The whole point is we reduce the risk and get the maximum benefit out of the exercises. So with this step, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called a hip hike. So a hip hike is where we start off with 1 foot down. I've got my toes and my forefoot down on the floor. My hip has come down into a sunken position, so my right hip is now lower than my left. And without moving my left leg at all, I'm going to keep my left leg straight. I'm going to bring my hip up and back down. Again, left leg doesn't move, there's no bend in my left knee. Up and back down, up and back down. So you can see that from the side if I just switch legs. So I've got one leg, which is my right leg here, completely straight. I've got my forefoot and toe on the floor, and I'm going to raise up with the hip, back down, raise up with the hip, back down, raise up with the hip, back down. And you'll start to feel this in the glute that is completely straight at the leg. Now the next one we're going to do is we're going to come back onto the step. 1 foot comes off the step and you're going to come into extension. So we've got the balance through the left leg and my right leg is being worked through extension. I'm working the glutes, but I'm making sure that I keep my core tensed and I'm not hyperextending with the back like so. I'm keeping everything nice and solid as I come back and forwards. The next one you can do is abduction, which is exactly the same, where we're on just one leg. 1 foot comes off the step. From here we come out and back in for abduction. We can also combine those two together. So we can do abduction and extension at the same time. Next one is hip flexion. So we can actually have both feet on the actual step for this one. One leg comes up, balance, slowly back down, don't touch the step, up, slowly back down, don't touch the step, up and back down. Finally, what we can do is we can then do circles. One hip and one leg is off the step, one's on. Circular circles. We can do both ranges of motion, clockwise and anti-clockwise. And we're looking to keep our balance on all of those. So naturally, they're very difficult exercises for a lot of people, especially if they struggle with hip mobility and also hip strength. But the more you do them, the better you'll get at them. You can decide to do those for the amount of repetitions or seconds that you like, but the whole point is that you're making sure that over time you're progressing it. So if you start off, for example, doing 15 seconds of all of those, try them to progress it to 20, 30, 45 and so on. The last exercise I'm going to show you is a squat. One leg is going to be on the step up and one leg's going to be off. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to dorsiflex the foot. So that means to bring it up, so my toe and ankle towards my body. I'm going to keep it in that position. This time, my left leg, the one that's on the step up, is going to bend down. I touch the floor, come back up. Bend down, touch the floor and back up. Now remember the hip hike we did earlier, the difference is that with the hip hike, I didn't bend my knee at all. So that stayed straight. And my foot, you'll notice, is in the opposite position when I do my squat. So it's pretty much the polar opposite of exercise. Again, what you can do as well with an exercise like that, as well as up the repetitions or up the sets that you're doing, you can make the step higher. So the higher the step, the harder it's going to be to control one through ankle and knee, as well as there's more range of motion and it's going to be harder during the exercise. So hopefully all of those exercises have given you some food for thought, some new exercises that you can add into routines to hopefully get your pelvic stability better than it is now. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to let me know. and just pop them in the comments box below the video. I've been Travistarrant, you've been watching UK Fitness Hub, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and I'll see you soon.